Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. This week, people lined up to speak at the State Board of Education meeting. They all wanted to debate, to weigh in on a new proposal that would go against President Biden's call to have Title IX expanded to protect transgender students from discrimination. This new proposal would require school districts in Ohio to tell parents when their child questions their gender or prefers to be identified by another name or pronoun. It would also ban transgender women from joining women's teams. 10 TV's Kevin Landers listened to the hours of public comment on the proposal. Here are some of the big takeaways.
If you pass this resolution, children will die.
There is fear.
A yes vote on this resolution is you telling me that me and my friends should experience more violence.
On both sides of the Title IX debate.
I have observed with 40-plus years of experience that nothing good comes of the presence of mixed genitalia in restrooms or locker rooms.
It is sad that anyone has to come here today to oppose this clownish, very hateful, and purposefully pernicious resolution offered by a State Board of Education member who homeschools his own kids.
The resolution opposes federal protections for LGBTQ students, specifically those who are transgender, and the community tonight says personal safety is a major concern.
As a parent, my greatest fear for my children is the risk of self-harm and suicidal ideation.
Supporters of Title IX say by not expanding federal protection for the transgender community will only support bullying.
It is nothing more than state-sponsored bullying and abuse because it attempts to erase their existence.
However, those against providing federal protection to transgender youth question if they could be sued if they don't comply.
Will I be accused of sex-based discrimination if I request that transgender women who are staff not help my daughter with her menstrual cycle at school?
There are also questions tonight about whether the resolution is even legal.
These regulations are not laws voted on by Congress. These are regulations created by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C.
The proposal before the Ohio Board of Education would also require schools to notify parents if a student questions their gender identity or requests alternative names or pronouns. It also asks lawmakers to ban transgender girls from playing on female sports teams. Failing to adhere to Title IX changes could have major repercussions and would allow the federal government to pull funding for school lunch programs.
It is unacceptable anywhere in this country that a child going into a school building should go without a meal for any reason.
That was Kevin Landers reporting. One former state lawmaker pointed to this week's State Board of Education hearings as a reason to run for a board seat. State Senator Teresa Feder, who represents the Toledo area, says the board needs to collaborate and focus on education policy, not culture wars. The legislator, who was most recently in the race for Ohio's lieutenant governor, told me that she will use her demonstrated ability to reach across the aisle and find common sense solutions.
When I get there, I'm going to have to fight for the freedom for children to learn honest history. Well, why is that? You know, that's a culture war. We need to be about teaching our children what's important in our history and who we are and what we want to be in their dreams. I want to fight for the freedom for students to be their authentic selves. Again, not fight a culture war from state board members that are way off base and the majority of Ohioans do not support.
Feder is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and Ohio National Guard. She taught 18 years in the classroom at Toledo Public Schools before first pursuing elected office back in 2000. Now, even if approved, the State Board of Education Title IX resolution can't be enforced until Ohio law is changed. In the meantime, school districts are pushing back, including the largest district in our state, Columbus City Schools. 10 TV's Olivia Eugenio talked with the school board president, who called the resolution disgusting.
The Columbus City School Board came out from the get-go with a united front that ended in a four-part approach to say they're against this resolution. At Tuesday night's school board meeting, every board member was wearing the same shirt, each one saying safe space.
There are people there that love them for who they are. And so we just wanted to demonstrate that as a full district tonight by wearing these shirts for our students.
The board using several choice words to describe the resolution dealing with Title IX.
Well, I thought it was outrageous.
Absolutely disgusting.
The school board unanimously approving a four-part approach. The first step, a formal letter signed by the entire board. The second, a formal resolution to be signed at the next school board meeting. Third, a testimony from the board that will be read at the State Board of Education meeting in October. And finally, formally going to the Ohio School Boards Association to make sure resolutions like this can't happen again.
That just demonstrates the commitment that this district has to protecting the rights of our children.
We are a safe space for our kids, and we want our kids to be able to walk through our buildings and feel supported just for who they are.
Our thanks to Olivia Eugenio for that report. At the same time that discussion is happening, Ohio Republicans introduced new legislation aimed at giving parents more control in the classroom. The bill would allow parents the right to review, quote, sexually explicit content and the right to demand an alternative. 10 TV's Kiana Deiches explains why some say this proposal is concerning.
The president of the Ohio Education Association says the biggest concern is that the bill doesn't clarify how they define sexually explicit content or what they're trying to rule out. In a debate over censorship in schools, Republican lawmakers say it's the parents' job to control what their kids are learning. In a statement, State Rep Sarah Carruthers says many parents across Ohio believe that schools should provide notification and transparency on certain materials prior to instruction. She introduced the Parents' Bill of Rights Act. Meanwhile, some educators say it's bad for students and teachers.
It is shameful. It prevents us from giving students the learning opportunities that they need and deserve. And it's also bad for educators because it is not honoring the professionalism of the education profession. Scott DeMauro is president of the Ohio Education Association. He says he's not sure how this bill would change things if it passes, adding that there are already processes at local school districts for parents to access and review curriculum and request accommodations for their children. That has nothing to do with the well-being of students. It has nothing to do with the realities of our schools. It's all about politicizing what happens in education. He says he's worried that it may change how students learn about science. There's no exception that's created for teaching of science, teaching anatomy, teaching about health. Those are subject areas where sometimes you're gonna talk about, for example, the reproductive system. I mean, that's just the nature of that content. The bill awaits further action. The General Assembly is set to return after November elections. In Columbus, Kiana Deiches, 10 TV News.
And we want to point out that Kiana did reach out to both lawmakers who introduced those pieces of legislation, but did not hear back. Right now, abortions in Ohio are available for people seeking them for a few more weeks. A judge ruled to extend the temporary hold on the state's 6-week abortion ban. 10 TV's Ashley Bornanson looks at what happens next.
The little wins that are really exciting, to me at least. I had a few friends actually text me about it, and I sent it to my mom, and I called her probably with a tear in my eye.
Summer McLean has been fighting for what she says are women's health care rights since the overturn of Roe v. Wade.
These are actually some of the protest signs that my mom and I and a couple of my friends used on 4th of July.
McLean says the temporary ban gives her hope, but she continues to fight on.
I've got these little stickers that I distribute around town for the Plan C pills, and just being able to share posts and information on social media.
Lauren Blovelt Copeland from Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio says clinics in major cities from Columbus and Cleveland to Dayton and Cincinnati are slammed.
It's a huge difference for our patients. It's life-changing for the folks that are able to be seen within the 14 days of the TRO.
Blovelt Copeland says patients are coming from all over Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, and even as far as Texas to schedule here in Ohio during this limited time. Amy Maple from Preterm, an abortion clinic in Cleveland, says their appointments have already nearly doubled since the temporary ban.
We're ready to hit the ground running and take care of as many pregnant people who need abortions as possible.
But for anti-abortion groups,
it's truly devastating from our side of the aisle, because when you
break down what abortion really is. It's the purposeful ending of an innocent human life in the womb.
Lizzie Whitmarsh from Ohio Right to Life says her organization is working on educating women through pro-life resources like pregnancy centers. Now both sides gearing up for November, taking their fight to the polls.
We are absolutely invested in the 2022 election, and it's incredibly important that we turn out the vote and that we flip the Ohio Supreme Court.
I definitely don't think that it's just pro-choice women that are registering. I think that pro-life women are very motivated.
Ashley Bornanson reporting for us. Groups from both sides of that issue told her that they're planning protests in October to draw more attention as we head into the November election season. Planned Parenthood is specifically looking at that state Supreme Court. Here's a look at who's running. Current Justices Sharon Kennedy and Jennifer Brunner are running for the open Chief Justice seat. 2 sitting justices are up for re-election. Justice Pat Fisher is running against Terry Jamison, and Marilyn Zayas is challenging Justice Pat DeWine for his seat. Also on the ballot, a levy for the Pickerington Local School District. They're hoping that this will work out for them by posting videos on social media of crowded hallways. That's what you see here, saying this is why the levy needs to be passed. 10 TV's Brian Somerville explains how much money they are asking for and how it would be spent.
The committee that is trying to push this levy through come November says growth is inevitable. The families are coming, the students are coming, and it's up to us to be ready. The Pickerington Local School District says now is the time.
Honestly, we're at a place now where we just can't wait any longer.
Tom Daines is the chair for Vote for Pick Kids, an organization that supports a newly proposed $89 million bond that, if passed, would drastically help a district that continues to grow in population and is already stretched thin.
Now, I don't know about you, but I can't go down to the local event hall and exceed capacity there. It'll be shut down by the fire marshal. Why should we expect our schools to be any different? Our kids deserve better.
According to the district, 2 schools, Tollgate Elementary and Central High School, are exceeding capacity, and 5 have capacity of more than 90%. It also estimates in 5 years' time, an additional 1,000 students will be enrolled. Now, you're probably wondering right now, what is this going to cost me? And the answer just might be nothing.
So based on what we're seeing, we're not going to see a tax increase for the majority of people in Pickerington, and that's a great thing. We love that this is a place that you can live where taxes are low, and we want to keep it that way.
The reason that is twofold. First, Daines says the district has been good stewards with its money and paying off debt. The second, an increase in local property value. What's also interesting, this bond is about $5 million lower than similar ballot issues that were turned down in November of 2020 and May of last year. But Daines hopes the third time's the charm.
Absolutely, I think this is the time.
If voters pass it, it would build a new junior high school, renovate Ridgeview Junior High School, add 24 classrooms at Central High School and 18 classrooms at North High School. If it doesn't pass, the district says it could have to redraw district lines, as well as switch to hybrid learning.
We're going to be looking at some very tough choices in the future, and whether that's hybrid learning or modulars out in parking lots or renting space in an abandoned retail spot, none of those are great options.
In Pickerington, Bryant Somerville, 10 TV News.
The district says if the bond passes, it would qualify the district for $75 million in future funding from the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. That would mean even more renovations for a half dozen schools within the district. Here are a few key election dates to keep in mind. Military and overseas voting begins on September 23rd. Voters must be registered by October 11th, the day before absentee and early in-person voting begins. Intel vowed to focus on Ohio and minority businesses. Up next, one lawmaker says he's making sure that promise is kept. Chances are your workplace includes several different generations, baby boomers and Gen X, millennials and Generation Z. Whether it's generational, gender, or race and ethnicity, the job of melding different viewpoints is critical to a company's success or failure. Business leaders are learning the importance of creating or elevating their messages on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. Eric Kearney, who's the Ohio Chamber of Commerce's Diversity and Inclusion Director told me that the agency pulled together its first ever summit to meet the growing need with practical advice for business leaders.
We have a lot of people in Ohio who maybe are not experiencing their full potential, maybe have not been given an opportunity to show their talents at certain jobs or have the opportunity to perform certain tasks. And so really the approach of DEI from this organization's standpoint is to make sure that people in Ohio, business people in Ohio, realize we've got a pool of talented individuals who can help make companies more profitable.
And you may remember Eric Kearney. He served as state senator for Ohio's 9th district from 2005 to 2014. Intel is one company that's moving into our state and making a promise to support minority business owners. Next month, Intel will meet with multiple Ohio suppliers. Those companies will pitch products and services. Intel has promised to prioritize Ohio businesses. Representative Thomas West of Stark County says he's committed to holding Intel accountable to keep that promise.
We had a robust conversation around diversity and inclusion and the supply chain responsibilities that Intel has brought forward. And I have to tell you, I was really impressed with what I heard from not just what they're looking to do, but what they have done.
Intel has invested $20 billion into Ohio and promises to bring thousands of jobs. As the city of Columbus grows, so does the price of living, which is why city leaders say they're working on a plan. And that plan involves a $200 million affordable housing bond, money that Mayor Andrew Ginther says is important to the community.
Think about it, from 2009 to 2019, our region added more than 140,000 new jobs and nearly 300,000 residents. But we built only a little over 50,000 new building units, new housing units. That's just not sustainable.
The bond issue will be on the ballot in November. If Columbus votes yes, over $1.5 billion will be dedicated to affordable rental units and subsidies for more affordable home ownership. Weeks after a 10 Investigates report uncovered a series of sexual assaults involving Cedar Point, the story goes even deeper. We'll explore the lasting impact for victims and explain the solution that was offered and turned down. We're back with an update to a 10 Investigates report involving Cedar Point and allegations of sexual assault. Emails uncovered by our team show Cedar Point has been reluctant to publicly discuss the issue. This summer, we've learned of 2 more sexual assaults, bringing the total to 29 in the past 5 years. Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Bennett Haverly with the lasting impact the incidents have had on employees.
When I stepped up and when I spoke out about it, I expected something to be done.
Erin McKay is still haunted by what she says happened to her at Cedar Point. In 3 separate incidents, Erin told me she was twice groped and once raped by coworkers.
I physically resisted, and it wasn't until I started crying where he realized that he had messed up.
As an underage employee in 2017, Erin says she wasn't allowed to live in the dorms and was only visiting friends when she was assaulted by a colleague.
We had all gotten separated, so it was just me and the guy, and then he had his way with me.
She did not report the rape to Cedar Point police because she says she feared it would end her early career at a place she dreamed of working. But Erin says she did report the 2 other incidents of being groped while on the job, but that a manager discouraged her from going to police.
And I was like, so is this something, because I was 16 or 17, I was like, is this something that I should do? Because this man's like 35 groping me in the closet. And then he said, well, do you really think your parents would let you work here? Because he knew I was just in love with the job. He used the, you shouldn't do this because then you won't be able to work here anymore.
Cedar Point has denied that it discouraged its employees from coming forward and offers services to all of them. Now 21, Erin takes medication and says she still suffers from PTSD and has trouble starting conversations or even being around men.
I thought I was finally free when I was done and I had moved out of state, but it all just, these waves just come in periodically of just more trauma and my eyes opening up to what really happened and how it's still affecting me.
Since our reporting began, we've talked to more than a half dozen women whose stories date back to 1994, all of whom said they endured sexual assault or harassment while working at the thrill park.
They were grabbing on me and I said no. Then we had went home from the bar, and that's where one of them I had sex with.
And you said no, and they continued?
They continue, yes.
Demi Arms says she worked there in 2007. A party-like atmosphere, she says, led to encounters where she wasn't capable of consent. She told me she lost her job at Cedar Point after getting into a fight with a roommate, who she alleges took nude cell phone pictures of her while she was asleep.
I reported it to Cedar Point Police because I got called in over breaking that phone.
And Cedar Point Police
Did nothing. So I felt like I had no voice. Like I feel like today, like still I have no voice.
Cedar Point is in the process of dissolving its police department, handing over power to Sandusky Police, which will provide a police presence in and around the park. Back in June, 10 Investigates asked Cedar Point Police for its records about the incidents it investigated. They have not replied. Of the 29 sexual assault reports made to Sandusky Police, only 3 have led to criminal charges.
That's too many. You know, it's too many.
Erie County Prosecutor Kevin Baxter says the cases can often be difficult to prosecute with no witnesses and he said, she said scenarios. But Baxter acknowledges the history of sexual assault reports at Cedar Point is part of the reason why in 2019 his office reached out, offering educational services to Cedar Point employees on sexual assault awareness and training. His coordinator wrote, quote, "Through providing this information, we can hopefully prevent some assaults."
They never took us up on it.
Internal emails show Cedar Point has been reluctant to talk about the sexual assaults publicly. Take a look at this email from earlier this year, when Sandusky's police chief told the Cedar Point chief he was planning to do an interview with our sister station WTOL. Cedar Point chief Ron Gilson wrote, quote, that he was not permitted to speak on any topics unless instructed, adding that he wanted Sandusky's police chief to keep him posted on how it goes. Sorry you have to be in the middle of this.
They're just trying to cover themselves. They don't want the public to know anything about what really happens at the park.
Bennett Haverly reporting there. Cedar Point has not responded to follow-up questions sent, asking why they're reluctant to talk about the sexual assault and what prompted the decision to dissolve its police department. Remember, if you have something you want our team to look into, email us at 10investigates@10tv.com. We certainly thank you for joining us here on Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. Have a great week.